The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with near-perfect accuracy. That precision, achieved thousands of years ago without modern tools, presents one of history's most compelling puzzles. This journey explores how the master builders of our distant past used the world itself as their blueprint. You will discover the specific, natural forces they harnessed to achieve feats that still challenge our understanding. How did they turn sunlight into a measuring tape or use a mountain peak as a permanent guidepost? We will uncover the practical secrets behind the world's most mysterious monuments. What forgotten intelligence might these stone giants still hold for us today? High on a windswept plateau, a solitary figure tracks the slow arc of a star, not for a single night, but across the turning of generations. For the builders of the ancient world, the heavens were a living clock and an unchanging map. The sun, moon, and stars did not wander randomly. They followed paths so consistent they could be predicted centuries in advance. This was the first and most reliable tool they possessed. To understand their monuments, we must first look up to see the sky as they saw it. It was a celestial compass, offering directions far more stable than any landmark on the shifting earth. Archaeoastronomers like Clive Ruggles have shown how these cultures turned observation into engineering. They watched for the sun's most extreme points. In summer, it would rise far to the northeast, and in winter, far to the southeast. The 2 days when it reached these limits are the solstices, but halfway between them, the sun rises due east and sets due west, the equinoxes. By patiently marking these solar events on the horizon with stones or posts over many years, they could establish a perfect east-west line. This was not magic, it was meticulous, long-term science. A single stone aligned to the winter solstice sunrise becomes a permanent, unmoving reference, a calendar carved into the landscape itself. This foundational knowledge transformed sacred sites. A temple doorway aligned to catch the first ray of the solstice sun was not just a building, it was a statement of harmony with the cosmos. It meant the gods or the natural order were pleased and the seasons would turn as they should. This celestial blueprint was the first and most crucial step, turning the chaotic horizon into a measured, meaningful grid. But knowing true east is one thing. How did they project that line across miles of rugged terrain to lay out a city or a pyramid base with such flawless geometry? The answer lies not just in watching the sky, but in mastering the very light it cast. That single beam of light at Newgrange is a message across 5,000 years. It tells us that for these ancient architects, the sun was not just a source of light and warmth, it was a precise instrument. They learned to read its most extreme behaviors, the solstices, with the patience of astronomers. The summer and winter solstices mark the 2 days each year when the sun reaches its northernmost and southernmost rising points on the horizon. Identifying these points required generations of watchful eyes, noting where the sun seemed to pause and reverse its journey year after year. But how do you turn that observation into a permanent, immovable guide? They used the landscape itself as a reference, a distant mountain peak, a specific notch between 2 hills, or even a purpose-built standing stone could serve as a horizon marker. When the rising sun kissed that specific point, it signaled a solstice. This created a fixed sightline, a celestial gun sight aimed from an observation point to that horizon marker. We see this principle in action at places like Fajada Butte in New Mexico. There, a spiral petroglyph is carved on a rock face behind 3 large stone slabs. On the summer solstice, a dagger of sunlight slices perfectly through the center of the spiral. On the winter solstice, 2 daggers of light bracket it. This is not art alone, it is a sophisticated solar calendar etched in stone and light. The purpose was dual, weaving the practical and the profound into one. Practically, these alignments created an agricultural calendar, telling communities precisely when to plant and when to harvest, governing the rhythm of survival. Spiritually, they connected the human world to the cosmic order. To capture the first light of the solstice sunrise within a temple or tomb was to demonstrate a sacred harmony, to prove that human creation was in sync with the divine machinery of the universe. This solar dialogue was their first and most reliable method for establishing true cardinal directions, a foundation built not with tools, but with time and unwavering attention to the sky. While the sun's path offered a reliable annual rhythm, the moon presented a far more intricate puzzle. Its dance across the sky follows a complex 18.6-year cycle known as the major lunar standstill. Picture this: every 18 to 19 years, the moon reaches its most extreme rising and setting points on the horizon, far beyond where the sun ever travels. At the peak of this cycle, for a series of nights, the full moon appears to rise in almost the same spot, as if pausing before beginning its long journey back. This rare celestial event did not go unnoticed by ancient sky watchers. They tracked this slow, majestic pulse across generations, etching its memory into stone. The great avenue leading to Stonehenge, for instance, aligns not with the sun, but with the southernmost moonrise during a major standstill. This suggests the monument served as a sophisticated lunar observatory, its purpose woven into a much longer tapestry of time. Researchers like Alexander Thom surveyed hundreds of stone circles across Britain and proposed that many were precisely designed to mark these lunar extremes. The builders would have used distant horizon features like a specific dip between hills as a permanent backsite. When the moon's silvery edge touched that notch, it signaled a standstill event, a moment of celestial climax that only returned once in a human generation. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? Solar alignments governed the year, but lunar cycles may have tracked something more profound: the passage of eras, the rhythm of longer cultural stories, or the timing of ceremonies that unfolded across decades. The moon's influence was subtle and demanded incredible patience, a scientific tradition passed from elder to youth, a long-term project whose full meaning might only be revealed to a community a handful of times in a century. This reveals a civilization thinking not in seasons, but in lifetimes, planning monuments that would speak to their descendants in a language of light and stone. Yet, establishing a perfect line to a star or the moon is only the beginning. How did these master builders transfer that celestial bearing down to the uneven, rocky ground with such breathtaking accuracy? The answer lies in a simple, brilliant tool that required nothing more than a clear night and a length of string. The moon's slow dance required a patience spanning generations, but another celestial body offered a far steadier guide. While the sun and moon rise and set, there is one point in the night sky that appears perfectly still. All other stars trace great circles around it, as if tethered to an invisible pivot. This is the North Celestial Pole, and the star closest to it serves as a fixed anchor in the turning heavens. For ancient builders, this was the ultimate natural compass. By the time of the Viking navigators, the star we call Polaris held this honored position. But the Earth wobbles very slowly on its axis over a cycle of 26,000 years, meaning the title of pole star changes. During the age of the pyramid builders in Egypt, around 2,500 years before the Common Era, the pole star was not Polaris, but a star in the constellation Draco named Theban. This shifting of the heavens is not a flaw in their method, but proof of its sophistication. It means their alignments are frozen in time, a celestial timestamp we can use to verify their age and their intent. So how did they use a single star to find true north? The technique was beautifully precise. They would watch for the moment when their chosen pole star, like Theban, reached its culmination point, the highest position in its nightly arc directly above the North Celestial Pole. At that exact instant, the star is neither rising nor setting. It is perfectly aligned with true north. A skilled observer using a simple plumb line, a weighted string, could sight the star and drop a vertical line to the ground, marking that direction with astonishing accuracy. This is likely the method behind the Great Pyramid's legendary alignment. Its sides are oriented to the cardinal directions with an error of just a fraction of a degree. To achieve this, the builders would have needed to track Theban's path for years, perhaps using a long, narrow shaft or corridor as a permanent sighting tube to pinpoint its culmination. This was astronomy transformed into foundational engineering. It required not just observation, but the meticulous preservation of that knowledge, passed down through generations of architects and priests who understood that their work would outlive them, aligned to a star that would itself eventually drift from its throne. The ground was now marked with celestial truth, but a straight line on paper is one thing. How do you extend that perfect bearing for miles across a broken, unpredictable landscape to lay out an entire sacred complex? A star's position is fixed in the night sky, but the ground beneath our feet is anything but level. This was the master builder's next great challenge, translating a celestial bearing into a perfectly straight line across miles of rolling hills and dense forest. Their solution was to look down to the most perfectly level surface nature provides, water. In the stillness of a ceremonial pool or a purpose-dug canal, water creates an artificial horizon, a mirror to the heavens. This was geometry made liquid. By observing the reflection of a star or the sun in calm water, an observer could essentially sight along the water's surface, creating a line that was flawlessly level regardless of the terrain's contours. This method turned a simple pond into a surveying instrument. The ancient Khmer engineers at Angkor Wat understood this power on a monumental scale. The vast moats and reservoirs that surround the temple complex are often seen as symbolic representations of the cosmic ocean from Hindu mythology. But they were also practical, precision tools. The long, straight edges of these canals filled with still water would have provided impeccable sight lines. An architect could stand at one end, look across the mirrored surface, and align a distant marker with the reflection of a rising star, effectively projecting a straight line for kilometers with minimal error. Water also served as the ultimate level. To ensure a canal or a foundation was perfectly flat over a great distance, builders could fill a trench with water and use simple sighting tools along its surface. This technique, using water's natural tendency to find equilibrium, meant they could achieve a uniform baseline from which all other measurements and angles could be derived. It was a way of borrowing the consistency of the sea and bringing it inland. This reflective property added a crucial layer of verification. After establishing a primary alignment using solar or stellar methods, they could double-check their work by observing the celestial body's reflection in a still pool on a clear night. If the star's image touched a specific marker in the water, the alignment was true. It was a built-in error correction system, using the sky's own light to confirm their earthly geometry. Water bridged the gap between the celestial and the terrestrial, turning myth into measurable reality. Yet, even with perfect lines and level bases, another profound question remains: how did these cultures, separated by oceans and millennia, seemingly arrive at similar understandings of sacred geometry and alignment? Could there be a deeper, more universal language written into the landscape itself, one that guided them all? The stillness of a man-made pool could mirror the heavens, but the ancient builders also looked to the far horizon for their most permanent guides. They understood that while stars shift and water can be disturbed, a mountain is a patient, unmoving sentinel. Before a single foundation stone was laid, these master architects were first master surveyors, reading the landscape like a celestial map. Their primary tool was the natural horizon itself, A distant, distinctive peak, a sharp notch between two hills, or even the curve of a river bend became a fixed backsite, a reference point etched by nature into the skyline. This was not merely convenient, it was a profound act of integration, weaving human creation into the enduring fabric of the earth. We see this principle written across continents. In the high desert of Peru, the vast Nazca lines are not just random drawings. Many of the long, arrow-straight geoglyphs align precisely with mountain streams flowing down from the Andes, or point directly toward prominent peaks on the horizon. These lines likely served as ritual pathways, guiding ceremonial processions toward sacred sources of water and power, physically connecting the people to the life-giving forces of their environment. Thousands of miles north, the builders of Teotihuacan orchestrated their entire city around a single, powerful landmark. The central axis of the metropolis, the Street of the Dead, does not run due north-south as one might expect. Instead, it aligns deliberately with the imposing bulk of the Cerro Gordo mountain to the north. This was no accident of topography. The mountain, likely viewed as a source of fertility and a home to deities, became the focal point of the urban plan. Every temple and platform along that grand avenue was positioned in relationship to that eternal natural monument. This practice reveals a worldview where the landscape was alive with meaning. By using a mountain peak as a sightline, they were anchoring their construction to a feature that would outlast empires. It provided a constant, checkable reference. Year after year, a builder could stand at a designated observation point and verify that the rising sun on the equinox still touched that specific notch, or that the pole star still hung directly above that distant summit. The land itself became a calibrated instrument, its features the fixed points of a giant, open-air protractor. This harmonious approach speaks of a deep respect, a desire to build with the land, not simply upon it. But aligning to a mountain is one thing. How did they then translate that grand, landscape-scale vision into the perfectly square corners and precise angles we find in their most sacred structures? A mountain provides an unwavering line of sight, but to build with sacred precision required a tool far more intimate and immediate. It was the humble shadow. A single vertical pole, known as a gnomon, planted firmly in the earth, became one of history's most profound scientific instruments. Its moving shadow, tracing the sun's daily arc, held the secret to true direction. This was not passive observation, it was active geometry written in light and darkness upon the ground. The process was meticulous. As the sun climbed from dawn to noon, the tip of the gnomon's shadow would sweep a long, curving path. Ancient surveyors would mark that shadow's tip at regular intervals throughout the day. The key discovery was that the shadow's length changed predictably. It was longest at sunrise and sunset, and shortest at the exact moment the sun reached its highest point in the sky, a moment called local solar noon. At that precise instant in the northern hemisphere, the shortest shadow cast by the gnomon points directly to true north. This line, running from the base of the pole through the tip of that noon shadow, is known as the meridian line, a celestial north-south axis drawn by the sun itself. This elegantly simple method is almost certainly how the ancient Egyptians achieved the breathtaking cardinal alignment of structures like the Great Pyramid. Before laying a single foundation stone, they would have established a clear, level area, perhaps a prepared clay bed or a smoothed limestone platform. A master surveyor would erect a central gnomon, likely a finely dressed wooden or stone rod. For days or even weeks, assistants would carefully mark the shadow's tip at different times. By connecting the arcs of these marks, they could predict and then pinpoint the moment of the shortest shadow, etching that perfect north-south line into the permanent site. This shadow play was then scaled to monumental proportions. The Romans, masters of engineering and symbolism, took the principle to its grandest expression. Emperor Augustus commissioned a giant meridian line in the Campus Martius. using a towering obelisk brought from Egypt as a colossal gnomon. On the paved plaza, lines and bronze inserts marked the hours, seasons, and zodiac signs. At solar noon on the autumn equinox, the obelisk's shadow would fall directly along the central line, symbolically linking the emperor's rule to the cosmic order. This was sacred geometry made public, a civic calendar and a statement of power written in shadow. The gnomon transformed a fleeting daily phenomenon into a permanent architectural truth. It allowed builders to ground their celestial alignments, moving from watching the sky to marking the earth with a confidence that still defies easy explanation. The shadow gave them north and south, but to create the perfect right angles and square bases that define their monuments, they needed another kind of string, one that could dance to a purely mathematical tune. The shadow gave them north and south with solar precision, but what happened when the sky was hidden? On days when clouds obscured the sun and stars, or beneath the dense canopy of a jungle, another invisible force may have whispered direction. This is the speculative yet compelling idea that some ancient cultures learned to read the Earth's own magnetic pulse. Deep within the ground, certain stones hold a strange and permanent memory of alignment. These are lodestones, naturally magnetized pieces of the mineral magnetite. If suspended freely, perhaps on a piece of bark floated in a bowl of water, a lodestone will slowly rotate to align itself with the planet's magnetic north. It is a simple, almost magical phenomenon, a compass requiring no human craftsmanship beyond the act of observation. While this method could never match the pinpoint accuracy of stellar or solar observations, it offered something invaluable, a backup system. In the fog-shrouded highlands or the perpetual twilight of a rainforest where celestial markers were lost, the lodestone's quiet turn could provide a general sense of orientation, a way to keep a project on course until the skies cleared. The evidence for this practice is subtle and debated, but deeply intriguing. At the ancient Olmec site of San Lorenzo in Mexico, archaeologists have uncovered magnetized artifacts, including a curious bar of hematite that appears to have been deliberately polished and shaped. When placed on a smooth surface, it aligns to a specific magnetic orientation. Researchers like the late John B. Carlson have proposed that such objects were not merely decorative, but could have served as early directional tools, part of a shamanistic or elite knowledge system that blended practical navigation with spiritual insight. This leads to an even more fascinating layer of the puzzle, the possibility of geomagnetic anomalies. The Earth's magnetic field is not a perfect, uniform grid. It has local wrinkles and concentrations, places where the field is unusually strong or oriented in a peculiar way. These anomalies are often caused by large deposits of magnetic ore beneath the surface. Could ancient builders, perhaps through the use of lodestone dowsing rods, have detected these invisible hotspots? Some researchers speculate that the placement of certain monuments or altars might correspond not just to celestial lines, but to these powerful, unseen terrestrial forces. A temple erected over a magnetic anomaly would, in their worldview, be literally grounded in the Earth's vital energy, adding an esoteric dimension to the alignment that we are only beginning to measure with modern instruments. Whether used as a practical cloudy day tool or as a way to tap into the landscape's hidden power, the concept of magnetic alignment introduces a profound idea that these master builders were not just observers of the visible world, but were potentially sensitive to forces that remain invisible to us without technology. They sought harmony with every layer of reality, from the distant stars to the magnetic heart of the stone beneath their feet. This holistic vision raises a final, overarching question. If these techniques were so effective and so widespread, why did this profound knowledge of building with nature seem to fade from the world? The silent stones may have held another kind of secret, one heard rather than seen. Beyond the visual alignment to stars and shadows, some ancient sites seem to have been designed for sound. This is the fascinating realm of archaeoacoustics, where researchers listen to the past, discovering that the very geometry of a space can turn architecture into a profound musical instrument. When you stand in the heart of a passage tomb like Newgrange and speak, your voice does not simply fade, it transforms. The low, resonant frequencies seem to linger and amplify, creating a deep, humming atmosphere that can be felt in your chest. This is not an accident of construction. The careful corbelling of the stones, the precise dimensions of the chamber, all work together to shape sound waves in a specific way. A sharp clap or the beat of a drum might produce a distinct echo or a sustained reverberation that tells a builder the walls are parallel and the proportions are correct. It becomes a form of sonic surveying. By listening for a clean, clear reflection or a specific resonant tone, a master mason could verify the accuracy of their work without ever needing to see a measuring cord. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta offers one of the most compelling examples. This labyrinthine underground temple, carved from solid limestone, contains a chamber now called the Oracle Room. When a person speaks in a deep voice within this oval space, the sound resonates powerfully, vibrating through the stone and seemingly amplifying to fill the entire complex. Remarkably, the frequency that resonates most strongly within this chamber falls within the range of a male baritone voice. This suggests the architecture itself was tuned, designed to enhance specific ritual chants or tones, turning human speech into an immersive, physical experience. The purpose was likely multidimensional. On a practical level, these acoustic properties could serve as a built-in quality check. If a drumbeat produced a muddy, distorted echo, a wall might be out of tune. But on a ceremonial level, the effect was transcendent. To experience a chant swelling and filling a sacred space, to feel the very stone vibrate in harmony with human ritual, would have blurred the line between the physical and the spiritual. It engineered awe. This auditory dimension reveals a holistic philosophy of design that engaged the entire human sensorium. A monument was not just to be seen and aligned with the cosmos, it was to be felt and heard, its perfection verified by the ear as much as the eye. It suggests the builders understood their craft as a synthesis of science and sensory art, creating spaces where every element, even the invisible behavior of sound, was brought into sacred alignment. The perfect echo in a stone chamber was a form of knowledge, a sonic blueprint that could be taught and repeated. But to sustain a building tradition across centuries, that knowledge needed to become a living system, passed from one generation to the next with unwavering fidelity. The true wonder is not just the alignment of the stones, but the alignment of human minds over vast stretches of time. How did a master builder in the year 2500 before the Common Era ensure his great-grandson's great-grandson would build with the same celestial precision? They built an invisible scaffold of culture, memory, and ritual to carry the technical secrets forward. At the heart of this system was the master-apprentice relationship, a chain of direct, practical teaching that could span lifetimes. A young initiate would not simply be told about the winter solstice sunrise, he would be shown. He would stand beside his teacher at the observation post, feeling the morning chill, watching the horizon for that first sliver of light to touch the specific notch in the distant hills. He would learn by doing, by mixing the sightlines with the stories, the geometry with the genealogy of the stars. This hands-on tradition embedded the knowledge in muscle memory and lived experience, making it far more resilient than any written manual alone. To support this, many cultures developed specialized priestly or artisan castes, families or social groups whose sole purpose was the stewardship of this sacred science. In ancient Egypt, the role of the astronomer priest was crucial. These individuals were not secluded mystics, but active engineers and administrators. They maintained the calendars that dictated the agricultural and ritual cycles, and they held the precise knowledge of stellar alignments necessary for royal tomb construction. Their authority was derived from their ability to predict celestial events, a power that seamlessly blended the practical with the divine. This institutionalization of knowledge created a stable, continuous line of transmission, protected within the structure of the society itself. But human memory is fragile. To encode complex data, they turned art and symbol into a durable language. The spiral petroglyph at Fajota Butte is one example, a permanent stone diagram of a solar calendar. In other places, entire myths and epic poems served as mnemonic devices. The Vedic texts of ancient India are not merely spiritual hymns. They contain remarkably detailed astronomical instructions for constructing ritual altars, specifying precise dimensions and alignments tied to the lunar cycle. Reciting the poem was a way of reciting the blueprint, embedding geometric formulas within a story that was easier to remember and pass on. We might also imagine the use of physical teaching models, like small, precise stone circles that could be used for demonstration, or clay tablets with incised star maps. These tools would allow a master to illustrate concepts, to show an apprentice how to extrapolate a large-scale alignment from a small-scale diagram. This cultural infrastructure, this woven tapestry of oral tradition, ritual practice, specialized roles, and symbolic art, was what made the multi-generational project possible. It ensured that the careful observation of a star's path, perfected over decades, did not die with the observer. It became a collective inheritance, a shared secret held by the culture itself, allowing them to undertake projects whose full scope no single person would ever live to see completed. This raises a poignant final thought. We have marveled at their methods and their means of preservation, but what became of this profound, earth-centered wisdom? If the system was so robust, why does it feel like a language we have only partially relearned? The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as the ultimate testament to these ancient principles. Its four faces are aligned to the cardinal directions with an error so small it defies belief, a mere 3/60ths of a degree off true north. To understand that precision, we must walk the site with the architect's eyes on a day over 4,500 years ago during the autumn equinox. The leading theory, championed by archaeologist Glenn Dash, begins not with complex instruments, but with a single vertical rod and the arc of its shadow. On the equinox, the sun rises due east and sets due west, creating a day of nearly equal light and dark. A surveyor would have erected a central gnomon on a perfectly leveled platform. As the sun moved, the shadow's tip would trace a smooth, curved path. The builder's genius was in the marking. They would have drawn a circle on the ground using a cord anchored at the base of the gnomon. Throughout the day, they marked the points where the shadow's tip intersected this circle, both in the morning and the afternoon. Now, imagine connecting those two intersection points with a straight line. Bisecting that line, cutting it perfectly in half, gives you a precise east-west axis. A line drawn perpendicular to that east-west line points directly to true north. This elegant method, using nothing more than a rod, a string, and a patient observation of a single day's shadow, could achieve the stunning accuracy we still measure today. But a perfect north-south line is only the beginning. The pyramid's base is also an almost perfect square, with sides varying by less than 5 inches across a length of over 750 feet. How did they achieve such flawless geometry on such a scale? After establishing their primary cardinal lines, they would have used them as baselines. Using long, calibrated ropes, they would have measured out the intended length of each side from the central point, creating a giant square on the desert floor. To ensure the foundation was perfectly level across this vast area, they likely turned to water. Evidence suggests they dug a grid of small trenches across the bedrock foundation, filled them with water, and then cut the foundation stones down to the water's surface. This created a perfectly flat plain, a man-made sea of stone from which the pyramid would rise. Every layer built upon this meticulously prepared base inherited its perfection. The ambition, however, may reach even further into the cosmos. Many researchers have noted that the pyramid's dimensions appear to encode mathematical relationships with the Earth itself. The perimeter of the base, divided by twice its height, yields a figure remarkably close to pi. The length of the sides relates to the solar year. While debates continue about intentionality, the correlations are striking. They suggest a culture that saw its greatest monument not just as a tomb, but as a model of the world, a stone representation of cosmic order and terrestrial measurement. The Great Pyramid crystallizes the entire journey. It is the marriage of the simple Gnomon's shadow, the reflective truth of water, the enduring lines pulled from the stars, and a human ingenuity so profound it aimed to mirror the planet itself in carved limestone. This was not magic, it was a science of observation, scaled to a level that challenges our modern sense of achievement. If one structure could achieve this, what other encoded wisdom might lie within the silent geometry of a temple or the long avenue of a forgotten city? The Great Pyramid stands as a single, perfected vision, but some monuments tell a story of change. On the vast, windswept Salisbury Plain, Stonehenge did not spring into being overnight. Its stones are chapters in a book written over more than 1,000 years, each phase a new sentence in an ongoing conversation with the sky. This was not a static temple, but a dynamic observatory that evolved as the society that built it deepened its celestial understanding. The story begins not with the giant Sarsens we see today, but with something far simpler and older. Around 3,000 years before the Common Era, the first builders dug a circular ditch and bank, now known as the henge. They placed wooden posts and, crucially, erected the first megaliths, including the massive, solitary heel stone just outside the northeast entrance. This stone is the key to the earliest alignment. If you stand at the center of the circle on the summer solstice, you will see the sun rise almost directly over the top of the heel stone. This was their first powerful statement, anchoring the entire site to the longest day of the year, a celebration of light and life at its peak. But this was only the opening paragraph. Centuries later, a new generation arrived with a grander ambition. They transported the enormous bluestones from distant Wales and later, the towering Sarsen stones to create the iconic ring and horseshoe we recognize. This new architecture introduced a far more complex celestial blueprint. The Great Sarsen Circle, with its precisely shaped lintels, is not perfectly circular, and its axis is subtly skewed. This has led researchers like archaeoastronomer Clive Ruggles to suggest it was designed to mark more than just the sun. The 4 station stones, placed in a rectangle around the main circle, create sightlines that align with the extreme rising and setting points of the moon during its major standstill, that 18.6-year cycle. This implies that Stonehenge's purpose expanded, becoming a sophisticated lunar observatory capable of tracking a rhythm that unfolds across a human generation. The processional avenue, a long, parallel pair of banks and ditches leading from the site to the River Avon, further enriches the story. Its axis aligns with the solstice sunrise and sunset, suggesting it was a ceremonial pathway, guiding people toward the heart of the mystery on the most sacred days of the year. This layered design, solar and lunar, hints at an even more profound function. Some scholars, including the renowned astronomer Gerald Hawkins, proposed that the complex arrangement of stones could have been used as a primitive computer to predict eclipses, those terrifying moments when the sun or moon vanishes. By tracking both the solar year and the lunar cycle within the same structure, the keepers of Stonehenge may have been able to anticipate when these paths would cross in darkness. This ability would have granted them immense power, seemingly commanding the heavens themselves. Unlike the finished, eternal statement of the pyramid, Stonehenge feels alive with experimentation. It shows us a society learning by doing, observing, and then rebuilding, each new phase a refinement of their cosmic model, written not on parchment but in 80-ton blocks of stone. Perched on a knife-edge ridge between two towering peaks, Machu Picchu feels less like a city built upon the land and more like a city born from it. The Incas did not conquer this landscape, they conversed with it, weaving their stonework into the very fabric of the Andes. Their blueprint was written in the language of sacred mountains known as apus. These were not passive backdrops but living deities, sources of water and protection. The entire orientation of the citadel was a deliberate act of reverence, aligning its most important structures to these eternal stone giants and the celestial events that played out above them. At the heart of this alignment system sits the Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun. Carved from a single outcrop of bedrock, its precise angles and central pillar function as a sophisticated permanent gnomon. On the equinoxes, the sun stands directly overhead, casting no shadow at all, a moment of perfect balance between light and dark that the Incas could observe and celebrate with this immutable stone instrument. But the celestial dialogue did not stop there. Look to the curved wall of the Temple of the Sun, a masterpiece of masonry. One of its trapezoidal windows is not placed for a view alone. It is a precision sighting device. At dawn on the June solstice, the first rays of the rising sun stream directly through this window, illuminating a specific ceremonial niche inside the temple. This event is choreographed by the horizon, for the sun rises not from an empty sky, but directly over the distinct pyramidal peak of Huayna Picchu, the young mountain that guards the site. In that moment, architecture, astronomy, and sacred geography fuse into a single, breathtaking experience. This was not isolated artistry. It was part of a vast, organized system of knowledge. From their capital at Cusco, the Incas conceptualized a web of invisible lines called secs. These were radial alignments that stretched out from the Temple of the Sun in Cusco like spokes on a wheel, each line connecting a series of shrines, springs, and mountain peaks. The sec system was a map of both space and time, organizing the empire's ritual calendar. Specific shrines along a line were associated with specific celestial events or familial groups, and the maintenance of these shrines on a schedule kept the entire society in sync with the cosmic and terrestrial order. At Machu Picchu, we see this philosophy in microcosm. The layout of its temples, plazas, and stairways reflects an intimate understanding of solar and topographical alignment. Pathways seem to lead the eye and the body towards specific mountain summits, and water channels mirror the flow of celestial light. For the Inca, to build was to participate in a sacred contract with the environment. Their precision was not about defying nature with geometry, but about revealing the sacred geometry they believed was already present in the world. They sought not just to mark the solstice, but to have the solstice sun, framed by a sacred mountain, actively enter and sanctify their most holy spaces. This deep integration raises a humbling thought for our modern world, which often builds in spite of the landscape. What profound connections might we be missing when we no longer design our spaces to greet the sunrise on a specific day, or to honor the mountain that gives us water? Their legacy is a reminder that the greatest precision sometimes comes not from mastering nature, but from learning to listen to it. The stone itself held the final secret, a geometry written not just in its placement, but in its very proportions. Beneath the celestial alignments and the shadow-cast lines lies a silent language of numbers, a practical mathematics that turned vision into reality. This was not abstract theory, but a hands-on craft, born from the necessity of building structures that would not collapse. The most powerful tool in their arsenal may have been a simple length of rope. A cord knotted at regular intervals could become a living calculator, capable of laying out perfect right angles with unerring accuracy. The method is famously embodied in the 3-4-5 Pythagorean triangle. Take a rope and create 12 equal segments between knots. Have one person hold the knot marking the start, a second person pulls the rope taut at the 4th knot, and a third stretches it to the 8th knot. The result is a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units. The angle opposite the 5-unit side is a perfect 90 degrees. This simple, brilliant technique is evident in ancient construction from Egypt to Mesopotamia, a universal trick for ensuring walls met squarely and foundations were true. It was geometry you could hold in your hands, but the mathematical harmony often went deeper into the very dimensions of the sacred spaces themselves. When researchers measure classical temples or even the chambers within the Great Pyramid, they frequently find recurring ratios. The proportions of length to width to height often follow simple, pleasing relationships like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, or 3 to 5. These are harmonic ratios, numbers that resonate with a natural sense of balance, much like the intervals in a musical scale. Why would these specific ratios appear across different cultures and eras? Some researchers propose a fascinating connection back to the sky. The cycles they so carefully tracked, the solar year of 365 days and the lunar month of about 29.5 days, are not neat, round numbers. They are messy, but by using harmonious ratios in their architecture, they may have been symbolically reconciling these imperfect celestial cycles, creating a perfect, eternal order on Earth that reflected the beautiful complexity of the heavens above. A temple built with a 2-to-3 ratio in its floor plan could be seen as a stone hymn, an attempt to fix cosmic relationships into a permanent, tangible form. This applied mathematics was a science of relationships. It started with observing the world, the consistent pull of a plumb line, the fixed angle of a shadow at noon, the reliable growth of a right triangle from a knotted rope. They learned the rules by interacting with the physical universe, then codified those rules into repeatable practices. The elegance of their solutions lies in their simplicity, a profound understanding that the most reliable truths are often fundamental. They did not need advanced calculus, they needed a deep, intuitive grasp of how space, force, and number interact. This practical genius allowed them to scale their vision from a single right angle to the grand, interlocking geometry of an entire sacred city. The monuments stand, then, not only as tributes to celestial gods, but as monuments to a human intellect that learned to speak the language of the natural world, using the grammar of mathematics to write its poetry in stone. And if their buildings were poems, then the final, haunting question is about the poet. Who were these individuals, these master builders whose names are largely lost to time? And what unique vision allowed them to orchestrate such harmony between earth, sky, and number? The knotted rope created a perfect angle, but the question remains, why did such effort matter so deeply? For the ancient mind, a straight line was far more than a geometric truth, it was a sacred pathway. The moment the solstice sun pierced a temple doorway to strike a golden statue was not just a pretty effect, it was a moment of communion. The architecture became a machine for manufacturing miracles, a permanent proof that the human and divine realms were in sync. This was the ultimate purpose of their precision, to build a bridge between heaven and earth that could never be washed away. At the heart of this belief was the concept of the axis mundi, the world axis. This was the central pivot around which the entire cosmos was thought to turn, a spiritual pole connecting the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. A pyramid, a ziggurat, or a sacred mountain was not just a building, it was a physical representation of this axis. By aligning it to the celestial pole or a solstice sun, they were anchoring that cosmic pivot in a specific, tangible place. The ruler who commissioned it, often seen as a descendant of the gods, stood at that very center, his authority literally derived from the structure of the universe. The alignment made the metaphor real. We see this in the soaring step pyramids of Mesopotamia, the ziggurats, which were called bridges to heaven. Their staircases or ramps, often aligned to specific stars, were not just for priests to climb, they were symbolic pathways for the gods to descend. The structure itself was an imago Mundi, an image of the world. Its levels represented different planes of existence, and its perfect orientation meant it was a correct and functioning model of creation. To keep it aligned was to maintain the cosmic order itself. This had direct, vital consequences for the community. In an agricultural society, the sun's reliable journey meant life. A temple aligned to the solstice was a giant communal calendar. When the light hit the inner sanctum on the shortest day of the year, it signaled the sun's rebirth and the promise of returning spring. It was a divine guarantee that the cycles of planting and harvest would continue. The ruler, by orchestrating this event through architecture, demonstrated his role as the intermediary who ensured fertility and prosperity for all. The alignment was a contract written in stone and sunlight. This symbolic dimension transforms how we see these sites. The Great Pyramid is not just a tomb aligned to Theban. It is a frozen ray of starlight, a ramp for the pharaoh's soul to ascend the world axis and join the eternal circumpolar stars. Stonehenge is not just a lunar calculator. It is a stone circle built at the end of a processional avenue, guiding people on a ritual journey to witness the sun's power on the longest day, reaffirming their place in a living cosmos. The precision was the proof. A misaligned temple would be a broken bridge, a sign of divine displeasure and a threat to the very order of the world. Their technical mastery, therefore, was an act of devotion, a prayer made permanent in geometry. It raises a humbling thought for our modern world of straight lines and right angles. Have we retained the geometry but forgotten the meaning? What profound human need did those solstice alignments answer that our own perfectly engineered structures so often leave unaddressed? Such profound achievements inevitably spark the imagination, leading to grand theories about lost technologies or otherworldly guidance. It is crucial to separate the solid ground of archaeological evidence from the seductive quicksand of modern myth. The most persistent idea suggests that human beings alone, with only simple tools, could not possibly have accomplished such feats. Therefore, aliens or a vanished super-civilization must be responsible. This perspective, however, does a profound disservice to the ingenuity of our ancestors. It dismisses the very human qualities of patience, observation, and cumulative knowledge passed across generations. We have walked through their methods, the Gnomon's shadow, the still water's reflection, the knotted rope, and seen how each is a brilliant yet entirely terrestrial solution. They did not need laser beams or anti-gravity machines. They needed time, dedication, and a deep, intimate conversation with the natural world. The real wonder is not that extraterrestrials might have helped, but that humans, using the world as their toolkit, achieved these marvels entirely on their own. Another popular narrative seeks to tie all ancient wisdom into a single, global thread, a secret doctrine known to a privileged few across every continent. While it is tempting to see a unified pattern, the evidence points powerfully toward diversity. The Inca's alignment to sacred Apus, or mountain deities, is culturally unique to the Andes. The Egyptian obsession with the circumpolar stars and solar rebirth is deeply rooted in their specific cosmology. The Maya developed incredibly precise calendars based on Venus cycles, a focus not shared by the builders of Stonehenge, who were tracking the moon's long standstill. These were not different chapters from the same instruction manual. They were distinct books written in different languages, each culture developing solutions tailored to its environment, its spiritual beliefs, and its specific needs. This diversity makes their achievements more impressive, not less, showing a global flowering of human intelligence adapting to local conditions. Perhaps no modern myth is more famous than the Orion correlation theory. which proposes that the three Great Pyramids of Giza are arranged on the ground to mirror the three stars of Orion's belt. On the surface, the match seems intriguing. The idea captures our desire to see the pyramids not just as tombs, but as a grand cosmic map. However, most mainstream Egyptologists and archaeologists regard the alignment as coincidental. The pyramids are not a perfect mirror. The spacing and angles differ from the actual stars when viewed from the Earth's surface at that time. More importantly, there is no textual or architectural evidence from the period that suggests such an intent. The Egyptians left vast records detailing their religious and building practices, and while the stars of Orion, which they associated with Osiris, were certainly important, a direct terrestrial mapping is not mentioned. This highlights a key principle in historical interpretation: correlation does not equal causation. The human mind is excellent at finding patterns, even when none were intended. Appreciating the pyramids for what we can prove, their breathtaking cardinal alignment, their precise square bases, and their embodiment of solar theology, reveals a genius that requires no speculative star maps to be utterly awe-inspiring. By clearing away these myths, we do not diminish the past, we honor it more fully. We shift the credit from imagined outside forces or a monolithic secret society back to where it truly belongs, with the countless unnamed surveyors, stonemasons, and astronomer priests who dedicated their lives to a vision larger than themselves. Their legacy is not a puzzle requiring alien intervention to solve, but a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of the human mind when it is deeply attuned to the rhythms of the earth and sky. This grounded understanding makes their story not less magical but more human, and in that humanity perhaps lies its most powerful lesson for us today. The debate over an ancient site's purpose often hinges on a single critical question: how can we be certain a stone's placement was a deliberate act of astronomy, and not just a happy accident of nature or architecture? This is where the meticulous science of archaeoastronomy meets the grounded discipline of archaeology, sometimes in spirited discussion. Imagine two experts standing before the same monument. The archaeoastronomer points to a line of stones perfectly framing the summer solstice sunrise. The archaeologist, however, might see a collapsed wall or a row of markers for a long-vanished fence. The challenge is verification. How do we move from an interesting pattern to a proven intention? The modern answer lies in rigorous statistical analysis, a mathematical filter designed to separate signal from noise. Researchers do not simply measure one alignment and declare it meaningful. They map every possible sightline from a site, analyzing hundreds of potential targets against the local horizon profile. They ask, what are the odds that this specific alignment to a major solar or lunar event occurred purely by chance? If the statistical probability is extremely low, the case for intentional design grows much stronger. This process must also account for time. The Earth's axial tilt shifts very slowly, a phenomenon known as precession, meaning the celestial landscape of 4,000 years ago was subtly different. An alignment that seems off today might have been perfect when the builders stood there. Sophisticated software can wind back the celestial clock, modeling the exact sky over a specific site on a specific date, allowing researchers to test their hypotheses against the precise astronomical conditions of the past. This scientific rigor is essential because the human eye is predisposed to find patterns. We see faces in clouds and constellations in random star fields. The same tendency can lead us to see cosmic blueprints where none exist. This is why controversies persist, even at well-studied sites like Stonehenge. The proposed lunar alignments to the major standstill are compelling, but some archaeologists argue the evidence is not yet conclusive, pointing to the monument's complex construction history and the difficulty of proving which phase corresponded to which precise celestial target. The strongest cases are built on multiple lines of evidence. A compelling alignment becomes far more convincing when it is supported by other clues. Does the architecture itself suggest a viewing point, like a specially shaped window or a narrow corridor? Are there artifacts or carvings that depict celestial bodies? Most powerfully, are there surviving texts, oral traditions, or ethnographic records from descendant cultures that speak of such alignments? When the stones, the statistics, and the stories all point in the same direction, the picture of intentional design comes into sharp, believable focus. This painstaking detective work reveals that understanding our ancestors is not about finding a single key, but about patiently assembling a mosaic of proof where each piece, from a star's ancient position to a chisel mark on stone, helps us see the grand design they left behind. Precision on paper meant nothing without the muscle to move a mountain. The true test came when the celestial lines etched in the minds of the astronomers had to be translated into the physical placement of stones weighing as much as small whales. This was the moment of engineering where vision met immense, grinding force. Picture a single sarsen stone destined for Stonehenge, an 80-ton slab of rock dragged from a quarry 20 miles away. The journey would have been a monumental feat of logistics and sheer human will. Teams of hundreds, perhaps thousands, would have prepared a trackway of wooden rollers or smoothed earth. They might have poured water or animal fat ahead of the massive wooden sledge to reduce friction, creating a slick path of mud that allowed the colossal weight to slide forward with a fraction of the effort. Every heave on the ropes was a step toward making an astronomical diagram real. This was not brute force alone, but applied physics. The lever was another indispensable tool. A long, sturdy timber placed under the edge of a stone, with a pivot point and downward pressure on the other end, could lift a corner just enough to slip a roller underneath or adjust its final position by millimeters. It was a way to coax giants, using mechanical advantage to make the impossible manageable. For the truly delicate work of positioning, counterweights and sand might come into play. To raise an upright stone into its socket, crews could build an earthen ramp. The stone would be dragged up the ramp and then carefully tipped, its base guided into the prepared hole. The empty space around it could then be packed with smaller stones for stability. Alternatively, they might dig a pit on one side of the socket, lower the stone in at an angle, and then use ropes and a system of counterweights to pull it upright, a slow, controlled dance of tension and balance. These methods were adapted to landscapes and cultures worldwide. On remote Easter Island, researchers like Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo have proposed a compelling theory for how the massive Moai statues were transported. Rather than lying flat on sledges, they might have been walked. Using 3 sturdy ropes, teams could have rocked the statue from side to side, edging it forward in a shuffling, upright posture. This stone rowing method would have allowed a relatively small group to maneuver the multi-ton figures across the island's terrain, a clever solution born from intimate knowledge of the statue's center of gravity. For the ancient Egyptians moving granite obelisks, water was again a key ally. A completed obelisk weighing hundreds of tons might be transported on a gigantic barge during the Nile's annual flood. The higher water levels would allow the vessel to be floated right to the construction site, minimizing overland hauling. Once there, the obelisk could be slid down a prepared, lubricated ramp into a waiting foundation pit, its descent controlled by vast networks of ropes and braking systems. The brilliance of these techniques lies in their synergy with the alignment plan. The engineers and laborers were not working blindly. They were executing a design conceived with celestial precision. The prepared socket for a standing stone was not just a hole, it was the end point of a sightline calculated years before. The final adjustment with levers, tapping the stone a hair's breadth to the left or right, was the last step in a process that began with observing a star. This coordination between the minds that mapped the heavens and the hands that moved the earth stands as one of humanity's greatest collaborative achievements. It was a society-wide project where the astronomer's prediction and the rope burner's pull were equally vital, proving that theoretical genius is only made permanent through shared, determined effort. That final, precise tap of the stone into its socket was the culmination of a civilization's knowledge. Yet the story of alignment did not end with the last ancient monument. The fundamental principles those master builders discovered, the very grammar of measuring the world, did not vanish. They evolved, echoing down through centuries to shape the tools in the hands of a modern surveyor on a construction site today. Look at the theodolite, the instrument used to measure angles with breathtaking precision. Its lineage can be traced directly back to the ancient alidade, a simple sighting rule used on a flat plane to take bearings on distant landmarks. The alidade was the tool that turned a mountain peak into a data point, just as the theodolite turns a satellite signal into a coordinate. The technology has transformed from stone and wood to glass and microchips, but the core action, citing a fixed reference to determine position, remains conceptually identical. We still establish a baseline, just as they did with their first east-west line from the Gnomon's shadow. Today, that baseline might be defined by a network of global positioning satellites instead of the pole star Thuban, but the need for an unchanging external reference is a constant thread in the human project of mapping reality. Even our everyday sundial is a direct, elegant descendant of the ancient Gnomon. It is the same principle refined for a different purpose, casting a moving shadow to mark the passage of hours rather than to find true north. And consider the spirit level, that vial of liquid with a bubble floating at its center. It is the sophisticated heir to the still water trench, using the immutable truth that a liquid seeks its own level to ensure our floors are flat and our walls are straight. Early surveyors used instruments with mirrored sights to bounce light along a line, a method that resonates deeply with the idea of using reflected sunlight on water to verify an alignment. These are not mere curiosities of history, they are a living legacy. Understanding that a modern laser level operates on the same foundational desire for a straight line as the Inca engineer sighting down a sec line enriches our appreciation of both. It reveals that our drive for precision is not a product of the digital age but an ancient, persistent human trait. This connection highlights a profound truth about technological progress. We often think of it as a series of revolutionary breaks with the past, but in the realm of measuring our world, it is more accurately a story of refinement. We have not replaced the core concepts, we have augmented our ability to execute them. The satellite high above grants us a reference point far more stable and accessible than any star, freeing us from cloudy nights and limited viewing times. The digital theodolite calculates in milliseconds what once required nights of patient observation and complex manual geometry. Yet the goal is unchanged: to impose an accurate, reliable order upon the landscape, to translate the chaos of natural terrain into a plan we can build upon. This timeless quest from the stone circle to the skyscraper speaks to something fundamental in us. It is the desire to understand our place, to navigate, to build, and to leave a mark that is squared and true with the universe itself. The ancient builders sought this harmony between their creations and the cosmos, and in a way, so do we, using the light of orbiting satellites to place our foundations in perfect alignment with a new, invisible grid that blankets the entire planet. A desert sky offers a perfect, unbroken dome for watching stars, but a jungle canopy hides the heavens completely. This simple truth forced ancient builders to become masters of adaptation, tailoring their celestial science to the specific challenges and gifts of their homeland. Their methods were not a one-size-fits-all blueprint, but a flexible toolkit, proving that environmental intelligence was as crucial as astronomical knowledge. In the vast, flat expanse of the Egyptian desert, the horizon was a clean, sharp line. This made solar and stellar methods exceptionally reliable. A surveyor could watch the sun's entire journey or track a star's arc with no obstructions, using the clear air and level ground to their full advantage. The desert itself became a giant, open-air observatory, where the primary challenge was not visibility, but the sheer scale over which they had to project their lines. They adapted by using the desert's own features, perhaps a distant butte or a man-made mound, as permanent backsites, turning the empty landscape into a calibrated instrument. Contrast this with the misty highlands and dense forests of northern Europe. Here, the sun could be hidden for days or weeks by cloud cover. Relying solely on solar alignments would be impractical. This is likely why sites like Stonehenge show such a strong emphasis on lunar and stellar events. The moon and bright stars could pierce thinner cloud layers or be observed during brief clear patches in the night sky. Their cycles, though more complex, offered a more reliable calendar for cultures living under frequently overcast skies. The long lunar standstill cycle, observable over many years, provided a dependable long-term rhythm even when daily solar observations failed. Their adaptation was to listen to a slower, more patient celestial clock. Then there is the vertical world of the Andes. In the Incan Empire, the horizon was not a flat line, but a dramatic silhouette of sacred peaks or apus. Here, solar and stellar observations were deeply intertwined with the topography. They did not just note where the sun rose, they noted where it rose in relation to a specific mountain. A temple window at Machu Picchu was aligned so the solstice sun would rise over the distinct summit of Huayna Picchu. The mountain itself became the precision sighting device, a permanent, monumental gnomon created by nature. In this rugged terrain, the goal was not to overcome the landscape to find true cardinal directions, but to integrate the architecture so perfectly into it that the landscape itself performed the alignment. Their genius was in using the environment not as an obstacle to be surveyed, but as the primary component of their sacred geometry. Finally, consider the flooded plains and dense jungles of Southeast Asia at places like Angkor Wat. Here, water was not just a symbolic element, it was a fundamental surveying tool. The Khmer engineers turned their environment to their advantage by constructing vast, precise reservoirs and moats. These artificial bodies of still water created perfect reflective surfaces and long, straight sightlines across otherwise obstructed terrain. In a landscape where the horizon was often hidden by trees, they manufactured their own artificial horizon. This allowed them to use solar reflections and water leveling techniques with incredible accuracy, adapting the principle of the still pool on a monumental city planning scale. Each of these cultures faced a unique dialogue between earth and sky. The Egyptians conversed with a clear, open heaven. The northern Europeans learned the language of the night sky and the long lunar month. The Incas held a dialogue with the mountains. The Khmer mastered the reflective properties of water. This astonishing diversity reveals the core truth. Their precision was not derived from a single, secret formula handed down from a lost civilization. It emerged from a profound, localized conversation with the world around them. They looked at their specific patch of earth under their specific slice of sky and asked the same universal question: how do we build in harmony with this? The answers, written in stone across the globe, are a testament to human ingenuity's beautiful, adaptable response to the infinite variety of our planet. History has a quiet bias, often writing its grandest narratives with only half the characters visible. When we picture the ancient astronomer, a lone male figure gazing at the stars tends to come to mind. Yet the story of how societies aligned with the cosmos is incomplete without considering who else might have held that knowledge. In many cultures, the rhythms of the heavens were intimately tied to the cycles of life, agriculture, and community, realms where women's roles were often central and authoritative. This suggests a more inclusive and likely more accurate vision of who watched the skies and guided the builders. On the island of Minoan, Crete, for instance, the dominant deity was not a sky father, but a powerful goddess, often depicted with serpents and symbols of regeneration. Artistic motifs show her in connection with celestial bodies like stars and the moon. While we lack written records, this iconography implies that the religious and astronomical knowledge necessary to orient palaces like Knossos, with their careful alignments to solar events, may have been stewarded by a priestly class where women held significant influence. The knowledge of when to plant, when to harvest, and when to conduct ceremonies based on celestial signs was not abstract science. It was the practical rhythm of survival, often managed by those who nurtured the community. Looking to Native American traditions offers clearer voices. Among certain Pueblo groups, women were historically the keepers of the lunar calendar and the agricultural cycle. They observed the phases of the moon and the position of specific stars to determine the optimal times for planting corn, beans, and squash. This was sacred, applied science passed from mother to daughter. A woman's knowledge of when the Pleiades star cluster appeared in the pre-dawn sky could dictate the success of an entire season's harvest. In such a society, it is not difficult to envision women contributing essential celestial data that informed the layout of ceremonial spaces or the timing of community constructions. Of course, direct archaeological proof, a skeleton buried with surveying tools labeled astronomer, is exceedingly rare for anyone, regardless of gender. The evidence is more subtle, woven into social structure and symbolic art. In ancient Egypt, while the high priesthood was male, there were powerful titles for women like the god's wife of Ammon, a priestess who played key roles in rituals that were deeply tied to celestial cycles. Wall paintings sometimes show women participating in ritual processions that marked the new year, an event determined by the heliacal rising of the star Sirius. Their involvement in the ceremony implies an understanding of the timing, a connection to the celestial event that governed the Nile's flood. To imagine women solely as passive beneficiaries of aligned architecture is to underestimate the complexity of these societies. If a culture's entire sense of order depended on harmonizing with the sun and stars, would they truly exclude half their population from understanding that harmony? It is more likely that knowledge was distributed according to a complex web of social, religious, and familial roles. A master stonemason might have been male, but the priestess who dictated the day to begin construction based on a lunar phase could have been female. The overseer who ensured the foundation trench was dug to the water's level might have been a woman managing the communal labor force. Including this possibility does more than correct a historical oversight. It enriches our understanding of the projects themselves. It transforms them from the work of anonymous, monolithic crews into human endeavors that drew on the full spectrum of a community's intellect and tradition. It suggests the alignment of a temple was not just a technical triumph, but a social one, requiring the coordinated wisdom of many kinds of knowing. This broader perspective makes the legacy of these sites feel more complete, more human, and in its own way, even more mysterious and profound. A single researcher can only see part of the picture. The true breakthroughs happen when different kinds of knowledge collide in the same room. Picture a table covered with satellite images, geological surveys, and fragments of ancient pottery. Around it, a geologist points to a vein of magnetic ore running beneath a temple site. An astronomer overlays a digital map of the night sky from 3,000 years ago. A historian cross-references a faded text describing a solstice ceremony, while an engineer sketches how sound waves would behave in the stone chamber being discussed. This is not a scene from a film, it is the modern reality of uncovering the past. Solving these ancient puzzles now demands a symphony of disciplines, each playing a vital part in a shared quest for understanding. This interdisciplinary synthesis is our closest equivalent to the holistic vision of the builders themselves, who saw no separation between astronomy, geography, and sacred art. We are learning to think like them by thinking together. One of the most revolutionary tools in this collaboration is LIDAR, or light detection and ranging. Imagine a plane flying over a dense rainforest canopy, firing millions of laser pulses toward the ground. These pulses penetrate the leaves and bounce back, creating a three-dimensional map of the Earth's surface stripped bare of vegetation. What was once an impenetrable green blank, it is suddenly revealed as a carefully engineered landscape. In places like the jungles of Cambodia and Guatemala, LIDAR has unveiled vast, hidden networks of roads, canals, and ceremonial centers, showing that ancient cities were far larger and more precisely planned than anyone guessed. For alignment studies, this is transformative. A slight linear rise in the Earth, invisible to someone standing on the ground, can be seen from above as a straight causeway pointing directly toward a distant mountain. LIDAR provides the grand-scale geometry, the context that makes a single stone's placement part of a much larger, intentional design. It gives the team their first clear view of the canvas upon which the ancients were drawing. Another layer emerges not from sight but from sound. The field of archaeoacoustics adds a completely different sensory dimension to the investigation. Researchers like those at the University of Salford use sophisticated audio equipment to map how sound behaves within ancient structures. They might play a tone or a drum beat and measure the reverberation time, the echoes, and the resonant frequencies. This data can reveal whether a chamber was acoustically tuned. Did the builders shape this space so that a specific ritual chant would resonate at a frequency that feels physically powerful? When an acoustic model shows that a passage tomb amplifies only the deepest vocal tones, it suggests the ceremonies there were designed for a specific sensory experience. This information, given to the historians and anthropologists, can breathe life into the dry archaeological plans, suggesting not just how a space looked, but how it felt and sounded during a ceremony, adding profound depth to our interpretation of its purpose. Finally, with all this physical and sensory data in hand, the team can turn to the digital realm for testing. Computer simulation has become an indispensable laboratory for the past. Astronomers can use software to reconstruct the exact night sky over a site on any date in history, accounting for the slow wobble of the Earth's axis. They can animate the sun's path along the horizon for every day of the year 2,500 years before the Common Era. This allows them to rigorously test an alignment hypothesis. Does this window truly frame the sunrise on the equinox as it would have appeared then, and not just as it appears now? They can run thousands of statistical simulations to see if the arrangement of stones at a site matches random chance or a deliberate pattern of celestial targets. This digital rigor helps settle long-standing debates, moving intriguing possibilities into the realm of statistically probable fact. It turns speculation into science. This collaborative model, where the geologist's map informs the astronomer's simulation, and the acoustic report deepens the historian's interpretation, is more than just efficient. It is a philosophical return. It mirrors the ancient worldview that saw the land, the sky, and human creation as an interconnected whole. They built with that synthesis intuitively. We are now relearning it analytically. By bringing our fractured fields of study back together, we are not just solving technical puzzles about stone placement. We are slowly, patiently, learning to listen to the full message these sites were built to convey, a message written in alignment, in stone, and in the silent memory of the Earth itself. The quiet temples of Mnajdra on Malta's southern coast hold a secret written in sunlight. Their architecture is a complex calendar, with different chambers and doorways aligned to the solstices and equinoxes. Yet, for all we understand about these solar events, a deeper puzzle remains. Why would a culture on a small island invest such extraordinary effort to encode these specific moments in stone? The alignments are precise, but their ultimate purpose within the fabric of daily life and belief continues to be debated. A reminder that understanding the mechanics does not always reveal the heart of the meaning. Half a world away, in the jungles of Mesoamerica, another celestial relationship whispers from the stone. The great ball courts where a ritual game of life and death unfolded often show curious orientations. Researchers are now meticulously mapping their axes, asking if they align not just to the sun, but to the dramatic appearances of Venus as the morning or evening star. For the Maya, Venus was not a peaceful light, but a deity associated with war and renewal. Aligning a court where symbolic conflict played out to the cycles of this fierce planet would weave the cosmic drama directly into the ritual on the ground. This hypothesis is being tested with new tools that allow us to see the past with fresh eyes. Across the globe, archaeologists are employing drone photogrammetry to discover alignments invisible from the Earth. A drone can fly a precise grid over a site, capturing thousands of overlapping photographs that software stitches into a millimeter-accurate three-dimensional model. From this digital twin, researchers can take measurements and test sightlines that would be impossible to gauge on the ground, especially across overgrown or treacherous terrain. They can virtually stand at any point in the ancient complex and see exactly what the horizon looked like, unlocking alignments that have been hidden for centuries. Simultaneously, old excavation data is being reanalyzed with powerful new software. Boxes of survey notes, hand-drawn maps, and photographs from digs conducted decades ago are being digitized and fed into geographic information systems. These programs can overlay historical data with modern satellite imagery and precise astronomical models, searching for patterns and correlations that the original researchers, working with slide rules and paper charts, might have missed. This digital archaeology is breathing new life into old discoveries, finding hidden order in archives and turning forgotten measurements into new insights. These open questions and evolving methods show us that history is not a static collection of solved puzzles. It is an active, living field of discovery. Each alignment we confirm does not close a chapter, but opens a door to a room full of new questions about the people who conceived it. What were they trying to communicate to the future? What aspect of their universe felt so vital that it had to be set in stone, waiting for the sun or a star to activate its meaning once a year? The pursuit of these answers keeps the conversation with our ancestors alive, ensuring that their silent stones still have much to say. The stones hold stories, but they also hold a fragile vulnerability. Our journey to understand these ancient wonders carries a profound responsibility, one that extends beyond measurement and theory. Every footstep on a weathered floor, every laser scan of a sacred wall, is a choice between revelation and loss. The ethical landscape surrounding these sites is as complex as their celestial alignments. Unchecked tourism, for instance, can be a silent erosion. The very act of thousands of visitors touching a carved stone each year, their hands leaving oils and acids, can wear away details that survived for millennia. A well-intentioned but clumsy attempt to clear vegetation for a better photograph might dislodge a crucial structural stone. The love for these places, if not managed with care, can become the very force that diminishes them. This is why modern preservation is a science of restraint, using minimal intervention to stabilize and protect, allowing the monument to speak for itself rather than being restored into a modern idea of what it once was. Respect must also extend to the living cultures for whom these are not ruins but active sacred spaces. For many indigenous communities around the world, sites like the mounds of North America or the mountains of the Andes are not relics of a dead past. They are places of ongoing ceremony, memory, and identity. An archaeologist's trench dug to find an older layer can, from another perspective, be a violent intrusion into a spiritual landscape. The ethical path forward requires genuine partnership and consent. It means listening to traditional knowledge keepers whose oral histories may hold clues that ground scientific data in meaning. It means sometimes choosing not to excavate, to leave certain knowledge buried out of respect for the wishes of descendant communities. This collaborative model transforms research from an extraction of data into a shared stewardship of heritage. Even our advanced tools present an ethical frontier. Ground-penetrating radar and LIDAR can see through soil and forest without lifting a shovel, which seems like the ultimate non-invasive method. Yet the data they produce can be sensitive, revealing the precise location of unexcavated burial sites or sacred caches could make them targets for looting. There is a dilemma in possessing a map that shows everything when that knowledge itself could cause harm if it falls into the wrong hands. The ethical use of technology means wielding it with discretion, often in close consultation with local and indigenous stakeholders, to ensure that discovery serves protection, not exploitation. Ultimately, the goal is a delicate and essential balance. We balance our human thirst to know with a duty to preserve. We balance academic inquiry with cultural reverence. These sites are not just puzzles for us to solve, they are bridges across time. Their greatest value may lie in their continued existence as places of wonder, inspiration, and connection. By approaching them with humility and care, we ensure they remain not as trophies of a solved mystery, but as teachers for future generations. They remind us that some truths are not only found in what we learn, but in how respectfully we choose to seek that learning. This thoughtful approach invites a final, personal reflection, one that brings our entire exploration back from the ancient world to our own modern lives. From the pyramids of Giza to the stone circles of Salisbury Plain, we have walked alongside the master builders of a lost age. We have watched them turn starlight into a measuring line and a mountain's shadow into a sacred calendar. Their monuments stand not as relics of a primitive past, but as enduring testaments to a different kind of genius, one that saw the natural world not as a resource to be conquered, but as a teacher to be listened to. They harnessed the sun's predictable arc, the moon's patient cycle, the unwavering pole star, and the perfect level of still water. They read the language of the landscape, using distant peaks and quiet pools as their guides. This was not magic, though it feels miraculous. It was the fruit of acute observation, of knowledge passed like a sacred torch from one generation to the next, and of a cultural purpose so profound it could motivate the work of centuries. These structures were their conversation with the universe, a way of saying, "We see the order in your chaos, and we will mirror it here in stone." They answered humanity's oldest, deepest drive to find our place in the cosmos and to leave a mark that speaks across the millennia. That drive did not end with them. It lives in us. As you look at the world around you, consider the quiet forces you interact with every day. The path of sunlight across your floor in the afternoon, the way sound behaves in an empty room, the pull you feel toward a particular view. These are the same elemental guides they used, simply awaiting our attention. What might you create if you began to see your environment not as a setting, but as a partner? The legacy of these ancient sites is not just in their staggering precision, but in the invitation they extend to all of us to observe more deeply, to build with intention, and to seek harmony with the world we inhabit. If this journey into humanity's shared ingenuity has sparked your curiosity, there are countless more mysteries waiting to be explored. Your support helps bring these stories to light, so consider subscribing for more voyages into the past. And we would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these ancient alignments resonates most with you, and what natural forces do you find yourself drawn to in your own life? Share your reflections in the comments.